All right. So good Friday evening, everybody. Thank you for joining the show. You know, it is again, it's a wonderful Friday. Why? Because I'm here. It's always a wonderful day whenever I get to be here. So thank you guys so much for following along on the show. Thank you everybody who's always a part and contributes. You guys again are the lifeblood of what I do here and what I love to inspire to create. So let's do a little camera adjustment because I was doing that a little bit earlier. There we go. Okay, so let's get all the particular information that we use every single day. So guys, if this is your first time watching the show and following us along, you can check us out on our YouTube channel, and you can see the link there at the bottom. It's www.youtube.com/the letter C/ made from scratch broadcast on YouTube. Do us a favor if you're watching there, hit the like and subscribe button. We are always trying to continue to build our viewership there. I do love it whenever we get to build more viewership. It allows us to do more creative things on the channel. So if you're watching there, please hit the like and subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell. What that'll do for you, we'll let you know whenever we do schedule new lives, whenever we do go live, and whenever we drop new content on the channel. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. All the gratitude in the world. And of course, we're streaming live on all our other social media platforms at MFSB Live. So if you're checking us out on Twitter via Periscope, you can check us out there at MFSB Live. Follow us on Twitter. We follow back. And again, if you're watching us on Facebook, you can check me out on my profile page at Gabriel Elil on Facebook, or you can go to our Facebook page at MFSB Live. Do us a favor, hit the like button as well there. It does the same things. It gives you notifications whenever we do go live, schedule new live videos, and it'll let you know whenever somebody comments on or does something on the page. So do us a favor, follow along on our Facebook page. We are always grateful if you want to take the time and follow us on Facebook. And of course, we are streaming live on LinkedIn, and you can check us out via my own personal page on LinkedIn at Gabriel Elil on LinkedIn. Send me an invitation to connect. I always love connecting with new folks and individuals, and it might take me a little bit of time to get back to you, but hey, wow, look at there, Carol Campos, awesome. She's wonderful, guys. If you don't know who she is, please follow her on LinkedIn as well. But lost my train of thought there. Oh, okay. If you're checking me out on LinkedIn, send out an invitation to connect. I always love to connect with new folks on there. And if it does take me a little bit of time to get back to you, it's because I do get a lot of messages, but I do try to connect with everybody and message everybody back on LinkedIn. So thank you so much. Awesome. So now that we got that all out of the way, let's get started, of course, with this evening's guest. So he is the owner of BE Consulting. It is a Chicago-based consulting firm specializing in life and career coaching. Now, this gentleman has worked in sales pretty much since high school. So that's a very long time. He's been in a lot of work. And, early on, he found out that he was really good at speaking to people. So he kind of transitioned that into what he's doing now. And he got enrolled at DePaul University, which is a very good college of business and accounting. And then he fell in love with marketing and took every course. He really took it in a lot. And, that's where he found a lot of joy in connecting with people. And, one of the things that he did after that was he was attending school for psychology, which is another level of really wanting to learn and connect. And you can tell that when we talk to this gentleman, you'll understand why that there's so much, and why people find him so personable, and why people again find it easy to open up with him. This led him into going into coaching and mentoring, and now that's what he really specializes in, is helping people find their why along on their journey. So guys, do me a favor and help me welcome to the show this evening's guest, Kelly Blackmon. How you doing, sir? Okay, hold on just a sec. Your mic is muted. Hold on. There you go.
There we go. I got
Yeah.
it. Definitely, it's good to be here, man. Good to see you. I know every time I interact with you, there's always something good, brother. You always got something good to say, so it is definitely my pleasure. Definitely my
Yes,
pleasure to be
and
here.
it's my pleasure to have you here this evening. So we're going to have us a good conversation, and a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about, of course, was um, your path to get to where you are now. So let's go ahead and start. Let's start where you are right now, and then we'll kind of just work our way backwards and how you got here. So tell us a little bit more about BE Consulting and how you actually formulated the company and why you wanted to start doing that.
So, working backwards, basically, what we do right now is consulting. It's going to be more or less coaching, mentoring, and what you'll find anybody who does coaching and mentoring will tell you what you find is that you've probably been doing it forever, like never really realizing it that was your thing. But it's the case for me. I was probably 12, 13 years ago, man. I'm a writer. So what I
Yeah.
realized is that I was taking a college course in marketing, and I decided like I'm going to do this as a business. This is going to be my thing. And I would go to like the local restaurants, local stores, and I'd be like, "Hey, man, what's your marketing plan like? Do you have this? Do you have that?" And 99% of the places, man, have nothing like that. Nothing like that. And once we started kind of diving into it, what we found out was that they needed one. And it was just the fact that it
Wow.
was so daunting and overwhelming. And I mean, if you cook really good Italian beefs, which is, our thing here in Chicago, you cook really good Italian beefs, man, you don't necessarily know about the business of cooking Italian beefs or restaurant or anything like that. So you do what you're good at, and the stuff you're not good at, you just kind of leave by the wayside. So because I was taking that marketing class, I was really in tight with all my instructors. I started writing marketing plans for people. And then that went off into making business plans for people. Because I'm a writer, because I'm kind of a data file, I'm all in it, man. I'm like, yeah, let's purse through all of this data. Let's try to find out what makes you different from your competitors. Who are your competitors? So for a while, I was just really into that space and doing business plans, marketing plans. Same thing when it came down to resume writing. I was on like Upwork and Fiverr and those places, and I
Yeah.
made a pretty penny doing it. I think I'm pretty good at that stuff. What I started to realize after a while, though, is that there were so many people who were chasing after a career. They were chasing after a position at a big four accounting firm, and I was helping them get to those things. They were chasing after starting up a sporting goods store, whatever, and I was helping them get to those places. But then you would see that they'd fail within a few years. They'd lose
Mm,
their passion within a few years, and after a while, it became a case where it was like, what's going on? Like I thought that was the dream, that was the end, and after talking with a bunch of those people, you come to realize um, they were really really into it, but they weren't into it for the right reasons. They didn't really have too much of an understanding or an idea of why they were chasing this or that, and that kind of led me into the idea of coaching. After you start talking to people and getting them to open up, and you go through like the five whys, and you really start to break down root cause analysis with these people, you realize. I knew a lady. She was trying to consolidate her student loans, and I was working at a loan consolidation place, and it was a case that she had about 250 grand in student loans, no degree, and I always use her as an example of kind of an extreme case. She went to school for a bunch of years and found out she hated what she was doing and quit, and
mm,
she has all the student loan debt. She's feeling horrible, and this is leading her down a progressively bad path. But the reality is that the whole thing started from the fact that she was chasing a dream that wasn't even hers. So,
mm.
with the coaching and mentoring with BE Consulting, what I'm doing is really just trying to help people clarify what is it that you're actually looking for? What's your actual why? And once you figure out your why, we try to help you map out a path to actually reach a goal that'll help you hit that why. So it's really, we talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago. It's about
Hmm.
purpose. It's about finding your purpose. It's about getting into a place, into a space where you're comfortable, because that's how you really are able to use all of yourself, all of your mind.
Right. And again, that's what we whenever we talk about, wanting to go out and learn more about yourself
Yeah.
and wanting to learn about um, what your passions and what your drives are. I mean,
Mhm.
it really starts from the very beginning. Um, it really starts from the beginning of just figuring out. I always equate it to driving a car. Where you want to go.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's one thing to somebody to tell you, "Hey, man, let's get out there and just go, right, hop in the car and drive." But after a while, it becomes redundant. You go, "Where am I going?"
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
at some point, you're going to say, "Oh, I'm also going to run out of gas." So
That's what I think I
um,
ran into a bunch. People running out of gas.
and at that point, you go, "I think it would be better if I had a kind of
A
a
roadmap.
destination." Yeah, so kind of what people have told you. Hey, you know where the destination is. We're not going to tell you how to get there.
Yep.
Um, so it takes a lot of doing that and figuring out um,
Yeah.
what that drive is, because again, it can be frustrating to have a lot of ambition, but to not know what to do with it can be just as harmful as
Yeah.
trying to go.
Well, I'll tell you what I ran into a bunch of, what I still run into a bunch of. These are high performing people. So these
Mm,
aren't just the lazy slouches of the world who don't really want or aren't really willing to do the work. These are people who are really working hard. These are people who, when they saw that to start a small business, you had to be willing to commit to 80 to 100 hours a week. They were like, I'm in. Like these are those guys. So when you start to see people who are willing to put in the work and they're willing to follow the path that they're given, but then they're still not happy when it's all said and done, you have to start questioning that path, man. And that's kind of what it comes down to. I mean, I think society as a whole is, we're a little caught up in what we think is the end goal, so much more than we're kind of understanding ourselves and seeing what that really is.
right, and again, it it is, even for some of the most driven people, right?
Yeah.
It can be
Yep.
um, it can be super frustrating. And I mean, I know, I believe me, I know from talking from experience where at some point in my life, I mean, here recently, within, I want to say, about the last 8 months, um, I just felt a drive to do something, but I was going,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Um, so that was always tough, and that was always frustrating, because
Yeah.
people would ask me, "Is there something wrong with you?" No, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
When people tell you, "Hey, go figure out what you want to do in life," I mean, for a while, you're going to look like you're lost.
Yep.
So,
Man,
I,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, and that's how I felt. So,
Yeah.
you know,
You consider this fact, man, that each step of this journey in life, we're kind of faced with a bunch of things that we don't know, we don't understand. And if you consider the fact that so much of this stuff is based on our own desire, our own wants, our own, if you don't understand those things, there's a really, really good chance that you're really not gonna find what you're looking for. So you think about the fact you graduate from high school at 18 years old, and someone tells you at 18, I mean, some people aren't even done growing or maturing. Their brains aren't finished growing yet
yeah,
at 18. And you say, I want you to put in 70 grand into the next 25 years of your life. It's like, what are the chances they're going to get that right? So, so that's actually one of the things I'm working on now, is trying to have a comprehensive program that helps people in the different transitional portions of life. So when you're coming out of high school, there's a lack of knowledge. I mean, even if it's just trying to understand. When I graduated from high school, uh, I was looking at who made the most money, and
yeah,
man, I'm going to be a doctor because I love to make the money. And I realized I have no ambition toward being a doctor. Like that's not, being a medical doctor, that is not my thing. I don't have a passion for it. And you imagine, man, I have like 200 grand in student loans, and either I'm a doctor and hate what I'm doing, or even worse, I quit sometime in between. So I still owe that money and no degree to show.
yeah,
It's
right. And
horrible.
and again, I'm kind of like you. where I feel the same way, where I've actually had a conversation with this week with somebody who came on the show, and one of the things that they said that they do made a lot of sense to me, and it really spoke to my heart about what I want to do. So
Hmm.
I'm like you, I want to find those points in life where that are really influential and really transitional,
Yep. Yep.
in doing these things. And what it came up to me was, um, I wanted to go out and start, using my talent to write, to reach
Yep.
out to adolescent teens who
Yep.
maybe at that point feel like they're lost or don't know what they can do with their creative spirits,
Yep.
and kind of help transition that into maybe something that kind of teach them maybe the path of what it is to become an author, or what it is to become, to use these things in the world. I mean, some of these people can learn maybe the skill of writing and get into learning what it is to copyright or to come
Yep.
into these sort of things. But there's got to be enough people out there who want to use that, and that's kind of what she was doing. She was using her talent as music to help people, um, get out of their shells, and help them with their mental health and how they
Right.
react to people. And that's what kind of spoke to me. I said, that's a great idea. I mean, I talk about going out there and making impact in the world.
Right.
And for me, it was, how do I start making impact? And that was the next thing that was on my mind, is how do I go out there and do this? And how do I start formulating it? So that's for me is one of the next steps, where I want to take in my journey, is to go out and start using the things that I love
Yep.
doing,
Yep.
and transition into somebody else. And hopefully, who knows, I mean, the world is full of hope and options, and people like that. You might find the next Maya Angelou somewhere,
Yep.
right? And
That's beautiful, right? If you consider the fact that you're it's not always a case where any one thing can like needs to be. You may There may be a case that I'm inspired by your art, and because I'm inspired by your art, it may open me up to something completely new, something completely special to me. One of the best things you can do to get out of self-limiting thoughts is to read, you know.
yeah,
And it's odd that you probably wouldn't consider reading as a way to get out of self-limiting thoughts, but reading opens you up to all of these other perspectives. And as you see those other perspectives, it opens up your mind to new possibilities. And the same way, man, like the arts are just like that. So I commend you for what you're talking about doing. And even if it's not the case that they become that next Maya Angelou, the fact that you're helping people to open up to things that are real to them and new to them and connect with other people, like that changes things. And I'm always telling people, man, like this is my little bitty way of trying to help save the world, like this
right.
little bitty piece.
Because again, they have so many other programs out there that want to help people learn trades, or they learn other where they spend time and money in helping develop athletes and
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
like that, right? These are My thing is to do the same thing with creativity. I
Sure.
mean, without it, during this pandemic, we would all be lost. There would be nothing to watch, nothing to
Yes.
read,
Yeah.
nothing. So these are the creative minds who put all these things together and put these ideas out there into the world. Why not cultivate that? Use that as a tool to say, hey, again, you don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. I
Mhm.
took that from Les Brown, and it made a lot of sense to me
Yeah.
to hear that and to go, okay, that's something that I really need to act
Yeah.
out there in my communities. Take those steps. I mean,
And that's why you're a trendsetter, you know,
and,
because you're
well,
using that.
and again, this journey I've been on has taught me so many new things, and that's one of them. Is that I didn't the 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 way that it would affect me. I didn't know how much it would,
Mhm.
and the to me, the why, figuring out the why was part
Yeah.
of it, right?
Yeah.
And these things are formulating in front of my eyes every single day,
Yeah.
communicating with different people, and I go, that's it. That's
Yep.
the why.
Yep.
That's the how to put all this together and put this out into the world and
Yeah.
help the next generation. I mean, I know people. I have a conversation with people who are out there starting. small coding classes
Yeah.
for teenagers and underprivileged youth,
Yep.
teaching them a skill that could actually translate into their possibly into their careers and help them
Yeah.
find maybe what it is that they want to do with the rest of their lives, as opposed to saying, hey, just concentrate on your education. Education's great.
Right. I mean, it's necessary. Yeah.
It is necessary in some people's lives. It is necessary to have that education,
Yeah.
but it's not everything. There's
Right.
people out there with degrees who don't even use them. Um,
Yep. Yep. Look, man,
so
I got family members, man, that were encouraged to go to school and get masters and PhDs, and those people are pretty close to unemployed at this point. So it is a real, real thing, man. Like the education is great, but it does need to be kept in its place for what it is, because it's not, like you said, it's not everything.
it's
It's
not
not,
everything. So I mean, um, and like I said, it is good to have structure. It is good to have all those things. I
yep,
think those teach you so much.
yep,
Those are important lessons, important things to get into life. But to say it is the be all end all,
that's right.
and for somebody to take on $200,000 worth of
Yes,
student loans
yes,
and not even have a degree at the end of it,
yep,
how insane is that? Because I'm sorry, those don't go away, guys.
yep, yep.
Uncle
I
Sam had
tried. I tried. The government said no.
exactly. They said, "Hey, by the way, that request you made and denied. Here we go. And by the way, we will be quote
Right.
unquote garnishing your checks
Where's
and
my
everything else.
money?
Yeah, here, where's our money? That's what they want.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
They're like that loan shark that
Yep.
never goes away. So
Now I will say this. There are things that I've learned from school, from the marketing classes, from the site classes, and they are very, very integral in what I'm doing right now, right?
yeah,
But that's not the same thing as school. That's information, because that wasn't all of school wrapped around. So I mean, and again, I got nothing against people going to school. It's just
I
it's
don't
just
either.
that I understand that there's going to be so much more that's necessary to create the kind of world, the kind of lifestyle that people really need. Because
Hmm.
again, um, there I just heard a story yesterday about a guy who was making quite a bit of money. Like he has a mansion, he's married, he has kids, that sort of thing, and he's paying a young lady's rent so that he can spend time with her, because he's still not happy with what he has. So all that money, all that success didn't equal up to a happy marriage, and you can't trade those two. Those don't go interchangeably. So the reality is that when it all comes down to it, what we're really talking about is which things do you have to have in place to create a happy life. and
Yes.
and that's kind of the
And
the the crux of where my life is,
yeah,
because I want that. And I'll be honest with you, I don't make nearly as much money as I probably should, or maybe even could, or maybe even would like to. But the reality is that I have some things in my world that I would not trade. I have a beautiful family. I have probably more friends than I can count. And I mean real life friends, not just like online.
online. Yeah,
But even on my online network, man, these are some of the best people who are supporting me, people who truly are into, like I'm getting messages daily like, hey, what you said right there was profound, man. That was really great. That really helped me to consider the same thing we were talking about before the show. um, there are some things that people are like just texting in, saying on the regular, like, hey, this is a really good thing. You helped me think about something different. Those are the kind of things that really give your life purpose, that really give you something to aim for. And without
yeah.
that, man, like all the money in the world, I mean, I get it. You got to still pay rent, but those things
It
you can't buy.
Yeah, those are again, and that's the misconception. Money equates happiness, and it does not. I mean, Tony Robbins gives hundreds of examples of people
Yep.
who've committed suicide or left things and
Yeah.
had everything
Yep. Yep.
going for them
Yep.
in their lives, and it was still not enough to
Keep them
make them
happy.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can be making $40,000 a year and have a house and be the most content person in the world
That's right.
if it is where you want to be in life.
And that's the key.
And that's the key. It
Yep.
doesn't matter if you have You know, it doesn't matter if you're living in a $200,000 home or you're living in a $90,000 home.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not the home. That's an inanimate object. It's what's inside and what you fill it with, and that's again that's finding the happiness in,
Yep.
that this is what you do, and this is what I talk about as well. Is to go out there and really do that, and that's why I said I'm still finding my avenues um, to spread happiness in the world, to go
Yeah.
find positive things and spread love and do that. That's why I said, for me, it's teaching. That's the next level for me, is teaching and speaking. Um,
But those are great. Well, if you think about it, man, it's a real misconception that it's a one time deal.
mhm.
Like what I was into 20 years ago obviously isn't the same thing that I'm into now. And what would
Oh,
make me happy before my son, before my wife, that sort of thing. Those things don't count nearly as much. So I think the bigger thing is learning the tools that you need in order to keep identifying how to keep hitting that moving target, because in the end we're not living very static lives. We saw a pandemic. We saw a man choked to death on TV. We saw, I mean, we're seeing things. We saw murder hornets. I mean, like we're seeing things that are almost biblical in a sense, and that creates a world where trying to have something be stable and static and try to stick it to a plan really is not going to work. It doesn't work. So the reality is to be able to move and to move in a logical, reasonable, rational way in all the disruption. And to
mhm,
me, that's where it begins to be uh, a challenge. That's where the fight is. And that's actually where a lot of the reward is too. I'm
it
working
is.
with a lot of recruiters right now, and they're like, "Hey, the current job skills that people have aren't going to be enough. They're not like companies aren't going to hire everybody back. Um, those things aren't going to happen. If you have a 4 to 6 month period before there's a time to start going back to work, up your skills, up your skills, But there are a lot of people who they went to panic mode, they went to shut down mode, they went to let's eat a lot mode instead of, and I'm part of that group a little bit, but neither here nor there. What it really comes down to is in this time frame, like you have a chance to do something different. I just before we started talking, I posted this post to LinkedIn, kind of paraphrase Orson Welles, where he talks about if you want a happy ending, it really just kind of depends on where you end the story. And in that
Mhm.
the reverse is true, because if you feel like your life has been a tragic life up to this point, if it's not over, you can start writing a brand new story today. And that's hopefully the point that people get when they talk to me. I'm all about this, trying to start from a place of love to try to tell people those sort of things, because not everybody wants to hear it. But my idea is that I'm going to tell it to you, and I'm going to tell it to you like I love you, because I do. And from that point, instead of you going into a place of shutting down, this is every new chance you get is an opportunity to try to make a brand new life. I love that. I love that as a concept, and I'm honestly trying to live it myself.
Right, and that's the whole thing right now, and that's the wonderful thing about right now is that your perspective should be where, because of seeing what this pandemic has done,
Yeah,
your perspective should be that, you know what, anything and everything's on the table.
that's right.
Um,
There's not a whole lot set in stone.
exactly. I mean, 4 years ago, this would be hard to fathom. Nowadays, I mean,
Hmm.
even in a business or anything,
Yeah.
anything and everything should be looked at and should be on the table of, hey,
Yep.
maybe we need to change this, maybe we need to pivot this, maybe we need to do this or that. Um, and you really got to take it for what it is, because again, if this pandemic has showed us anything, is nothing is certain anymore. Nothing is set in stone.
That's right.
So take it for what it is and use the same philosophy
Yep.
and apply it to your life and go see what can happen. Yeah, David sits. The pandemic was phenomenal for me.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm like David. It's been the single best thing to happen in my life. And I know that there's people that have had
Yeah.
misery. I know.
Yeah.
I have a friend who went through misery. I
Yeah.
mean, he lost his again. Shout out to Oliver Aguilar, my friend, but he lost his stepfather in February, right? And then last month he lost his wife to cancer.
Oh,
He was furloughed for months. Still has a great attitude.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so even if somebody can like that can go through this time of COVID and come out and still have that kind of attitude, what is my excuse? So that's why I say I've taken I've taken the bull by the horns and I've ran with it this year. And guess what? I'm going to ride it as long as it'll allow me to go because
Mm-hmm.
it's changed everything for me. It's changed my life. It's given me everything that I now my eyes are wide open to opportunities and what my capabilities are and what my boundaries are and everything. Um, I've changed it all. I've changed the way that that's what I said. Each individual conversation that I have with somebody has been a learning lesson,
Yeah.
and there's something that I take away from it that has helped me transition my life.
Let me ask you this, man. I'm going to turn the tables on you for just a
Let's
second
go. Let's go. I love
because
this.
first off, let me just shamelessly plug my podcast, How to Win at Everything. This is what I'm doing with people, man. I want to know is since you weren't initially in that place of that growth mindset, that success mindset, what do you think changed? So we know COVID happened and that kind of changed the paradigm for everybody. But what changed in you that made that a possibility instead of just shutting down?
Here's okay. Here's what it was, and it was because I started this mantra at the beginning of the year, and it's carried me through COVID.
Okay.
And that mantra was challenge myself. Um, and that's what I started off the year with was to challenge myself on anything and everything that I really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to put out in the world was to challenge myself on
Yeah.
uh, with my personal growth, with my health, with finances, with
Yeah.
my career, everything. I wanted to challenge the way I looked at everything and how I approached it, and that started me down this path to go, hey, um, my whole idea, and I've told this story to everybody, but my whole idea was just to start a podcast, Kelly. It wasn't really to do a live stream,
Yeah.
but along that path and reaching out to folks, I said, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself. I
Mm.
saw a gentleman who was doing it. He helped me learn how to do it
Right.
and took every excuse out of the way for me to not do it. So I sat down and I just started talking. And it's kind of been the same thing now, except this has been such a wonderful way for me to learn. This kind of has helped me speed up my development and my growth in things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, it by being in that mindset of already wanting to challenge everything,
Mm-hmm.
it just made me realize that once COVID happened, that hey, it's another challenge.
Yep.
Let's see what you can do with it. I mean, literally in 2 weeks, and I was in quarantine. I got on so many live shows. I
Yeah.
started my website. I started doing all these things in a 14-day quarantine where I wasn't doing nothing. And I said that was a sign for me to go push forward with it. So that's why I wanted to challenge, and that's why I tell everybody now, um, think about it, think about your life, and challenge it. It's something that you would not normally do, and just to see what happens. I mean, the alternative is you can always go back to being who you were. If you really want to just fall back into that routine, it'll be natural to fall back in place. So um,
You know,
that's why I just say challenge it and see what happens. It's
I,
like it. Go ahead, Kelly.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was gonna say I love this. I'm looking at the comments coming through, and how many people are kind of echoing those same thoughts. Where it's hey, I think it was Joel or someone was just David was saying he was able to really build the bones of his business
Yeah,
during this time, and I think it comes down to a couple of different things. Obviously, the locus of control. So it is one of the big parts when things are things happening to you, or are you empowered during those times. And one of the big things I'm really trying to push on pretty much anybody who will listen. You
But
can't
yeah,
control pretty much anything that anyone else does. You can't control their thoughts. You can't control their actions. You can control yours though. And in that tiny little itty bitty space is a world of power, because this is how the Jews were able to stay a united people during Nazi Germany's reign. This is what changes you from a victim to a survivor. And the research backs this up, that if it's a case that it really comes down to perspective, which is why I was asking you the question, because you can tell your perspective about this is way different from someone who maybe considers themselves a victim of COVID, a victim of those circumstances. When I saw so many people on LinkedIn, once COVID hit, they were like, hey, so it seems like a great chance to get this business going. And I mean, that sort of mentality, even though it's a little bit weird to to like directly try to profit off of a bad situation, but to see opportunities where other people see challenges, I think that is a difference in mindset. And that's what makes someone who's a potential victim into a winner.
yeah, right. And just taking the same, and you know, one of my cohorts there says only you can control your reactions. Yeah, that's really what it essentially comes down to. Is you have the ability um, to change everything, and how you see life and how you react to life and whatever. I mean, um, I know just from everything that I've gone through and um, what I've written down, what I've journaled, and what I've a lot of the belief systems that I used to
Mm-hmm.
have changed,
Yeah.
um, because I'm open to it. I'm open to listening to um, things that I probably would have shut my mind off for a year ago or 2 years ago. I would have been as open. I wasn't ready to accept those sort of things. So, um, being where I'm at now, um, I'm always super ready to let somebody share a story, share their knowledge, share their wisdom, share their experiences with me. Because again, I take it as um, it's like them giving me free education, free,
Yeah.
and I take it to heart, and that's what I try to do is take it in and apply it to some sort of way in my life, and if not, I can use it to impart to somebody else.
Yes. Yep.
So, I mean, it's a win-win um, in so many ways. So that's why when I get people who kind of like yourself who understand these concepts, right, and talk about them and live them and instill them in their own lives, to go around and start sharing it with other people.
Yeah.
I mean, it really warms my heart, because again, that just means there's somebody else just interested in helping change the world and change somebody's life. And um, to me, that's all where it's at, is to do that. Um, that's why my calling has been, is I want to um, start teaching youth at a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And
And obviously, I I read a post that you were a part of, and we were talking about machismo and that sort of thing.
mhm,
It makes me kind of think about the fact that we learn so much of our we get so much about what the world is. George Ellerick is a behavioral scientist, buddy of mine, and we were talking about, by the time you're about 7 years old, your idea of the world is pretty much defined. So
mhm,
we're talking about the whole the machoism and the manliness and that sort of thing, and that actually spurred me along to make a few posts about that too, because it's such a huge and interesting sort of subject. When we start to think about, when we start to pick up those belief systems, those beliefs that are limiting to us, those beliefs that are guiding us to think one way or the other, when we start to think about when they start and where they come up, like I remember older guys telling me at about 5, 6 years old, like, hey man, the way that you're a real man, you got to have several girlfriends. And I remember like in my head, like that's I mean, my wife totally disagrees with that. Let me just say that. When
Of course.
when I think about the fact that this is how I was raised, and obviously as I got a little bit older and started getting into dating and things like that, I started trying to live those things out because that was my value system. Yeah, so the idea that you're talking about, man, with just your presence with the younger generations. So
Hmm.
your presence, just you saying, instead of taking my wealth, taking my knowledge, taking my information, my understanding, taking my stature, taking my platform and going and just trying to build for myself. Just the idea of you saying, no, I'm gonna go back and say to any willing to listen, hey, this is who I am. And even if they don't agree with you, that sort of thing, man, you're teaching. Like they're gonna learn from you no matter what.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't have to, and kind of like what you were talking about, how formulating within the first 7 years, right, of how the growth is. I saw somebody, a friend of mine, had sent me a video, and it was of Dr. Bruce Lipton, and that's what he was saying is that
Mm-hmm.
the Jesuit monks knew this. They would go and they would tell parents, hey, um, give me your child for the first 7 years, and I'll show you the man. I mean,
Wow.
right? So they knew those first 7 years were very important and very formative in how your belief system was created.
Yeah.
And he talks about it as well in the same sort of fact that because their brainwaves are so optimal for learning,
Yeah.
it's like being in hypnosis. The way that they take in information, so that's what it does until it becomes part of their natural subconscious way of thinking, and um, it's very difficult to change that as you get older. I mean, it's not that it's not possible because that's what neuroplasticity is, but it can be changed, but you have to work on it as opposed to where it was taught to you. So that's why I say I would love the opportunity to go out and teach kids at a whole different level that way.
Yeah.
That, what the world is and how the world can change. And even what we're talking about with things like any kind of ism, racism, sexism, all these stuff. So those are all things that that I think that you can start really getting into
Mm-hmm.
teaching the next level. But
Yep.
it's gonna have to be generational. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm a realist. I know that in my lifetime I probably won't see it, but hopefully the seeds are implanted there that maybe they
Yeah.
can continue to nurture, and maybe they'll go, you know, that you can go to the next level. And I love that when people do that. I mean, my buddy Jesus Rosario here, they do a program as well that I was reading about that they do that helps youth. I mean,
Yeah.
it's to me that's where it's at. And again, the adults, yes, the adults have the money to help
Mm-hmm.
um, stem careers off of this and coaching and
Yeah.
mentoring, and there's nothing wrong with it. I love that. I mean, if you're able and open and willing to go learn and able to pay for it, go do it. It's such a wonderful thing to do. But I mean, to kids who are learning and growing into adulthood, I mean, if you're giving it to them and are teaching them about it,
Yeah.
and the ones that do take it in, I mean, it changes their lives.
Yeah.
It changes the fabric of who they are and the foundation of how they build into adults. So
Let me ask you, man, because when we talk about something like that, hold on, let me also get my line here.
yeah,
When we talk about something like that, we're making a point that is going to change the kids. But here's my question: Is it? Do you think it's realistic that by making those changes in, let's say, the upcoming generation, because this is one of the things George and I kind of go back and forth over.
okay.
If you're talking about changing these things in a younger generation, does that? I mean, I know you're saying maybe you won't see it, but does that transform our world? You know,
I think
it happening on a large scale first.
I think it does in steps. I mean,
Okay.
look at racism. Racism's not gone away,
Nope.
right? It has not. But
Yes.
the way that it has to happen, or the way for it to do, is not as blunt, is not as open, is not so much so where you cannot go out in society now and just call anybody or everybody what you want,
Okay.
as opposed to back when it was acceptable, or not acceptable even, but what was learned,
Right.
right?
Right.
To call somebody a boy or an N-word, or you can't you. I mean, we've gotten to the point where we can't do that now, and even at some points, it is acceptable. Um, it is, excuse me, not acceptable. It's unacceptable to to see those behaviors and not be able to reprimand somebody for it.
Mhm.
Where back in the days, it was, hey, it was law, it was this, it was that. So it has taken steps, slow steps, but they are steps. Um, is it to where it needs to be? No. Um, will it be where it needs to be by the time I gone? Probably not. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but again, it's the hope that you get to. Um, it's the fact that you get to at least try, and I think that's what's important. It's
Yeah.
to it's to literally try to get that and change that and get that out into the world. I mean, it
Because that's what hope really is. It's not
it
their
is
motivation. Yeah.
it is. So that's why I say I am a realist, and I tell people probably not in my time, but I mean, if you were probably to ask if he were still alive today, or he would have come back today for one day and see everything, I think Dr. King would say there has been change.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
right? From what he
Yeah.
was used to where we are now. So it hasn't been quantum leaps, but it
Yeah.
has been something that's going forward. And I think by doing what I'm talking about, it does that by changing it.
Yeah.
Um, Again, it's got to be generational, because it didn't happen this way overnight. You're talking about
Yeah.
over 400 years of slavery. You cannot just turn that over overnight. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I it, but that does not mean you can limit it or not change it in a particular way to
Sure.
start cultivating the way that people's thoughts and belief systems operate. So I mean, I do understand it. I
So
mean, where he's coming from.
now that right there, that's the place where I end up at a bunch, right?
Mhm.
This is racism. This isn't just about all the different isms. This is about our belief systems, our way of thinking in general. Because of the fact that every day I'm faced with someone's beliefs, someone's limiting beliefs, limiting about them, someone's biases about me. Like every day this comes up, and because I'm very aware of when it's coming up, it becomes more of a it becomes more of a hassle for me to work around it because my standpoint is that uh, I want to create a space for people of all sorts. So if you're the most racist guy in the world, I don't agree with you. I think you're wrong. But at the same time, I want to create a space for you to feel comfortable enough to get to a point where we can have that discussion. And because I feel like the only way that you start to change these things with people is by having those discussions. And this is where I guess you'd call it my methodology comes into play. When I'm talking to somebody about limiting beliefs, one of the things that it's always fun to do is to bring up the things that are limiting them because usually when you're on outside of it, you can see it much easier, much better. And once you bring it up to them and it becomes kind of a contradiction from where they're saying they are, they're like, oh yeah, well, I um I love black people. I have a black friend. Everybody understands that when you say you have a black friend,
Like, yeah.
like you should be like considering that. But when you bring that up to people, then it kind of snaps and they're like, oh, okay, I see that, I get that. But if you don't allow people that freedom to say, to get into that conversation, it changes everything. So
Right.
gotta admit, man, my methodology, I'm not as concerned with societally where we are as much as I'm concerned with what kind of people are trying to be.
Yeah.
You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like because in my mind, what that really means is that if you tell me that there's a person who's trying to do it right, but they're a total a-hole bad person, but in their mind they're trying to do it right, that's a difference from like just a wicked bad person. You know,
Hmm.
that's the person who is misunderstanding, which means once you add understanding to that person, you may have a whole new human being. Uh,
Exactly.
in the
Yes.
same sense, I had the older guys telling me to chase women. Once I got into a point where I was old enough to understand, it was like, oh my God, that's horrible. Like you can't like now I see why you and your wife broke up. Like that's a horrible thing. And but it wasn't until it was the case that I was able, like if I had never brought that up or was never understanding that that was a thing, if it was never conscious, uh,
Yeah.
then it would have been a case that it would have been one of those beliefs that was dug in so deep that I would have never addressed it. So
Yeah.
I love the idea of having those conversations and kind of pushing those conversations, man, because
Yeah. It is. It
that,
is. And
that's
it,
how you make changes happen.
yeah, it's super important. I mean, I kind of, not that this is what it is, but you kind of equate it to when you have two generals in battle and
Yeah,
and they respect each other
yeah,
and they have to know what the weaknesses and what the strengths of each other are, if they're going to go into battle. And
yeah,
it's not the fact that, it's not the fact that there's got to be a winner or loser, but it's the fact that you at least have to know who and what you're dealing with and who you're talking to and how you talk to somebody. So yeah, those are super important to have those kind of conversations. And like Dimitri was kind of saying, those are the best ones to have,
yeah, yeah.
because again, it's it would be, again, it would be naive of me to think that there's not somebody out there who just hates somebody else for
Hmm.
whatever reason it is they
Hmm.
have. Um, because I believe in the equality of good and hate. I mean, the good and evil. There's got to have both.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm a full believer in balance. How do you know what darkness is without light? How do you know what good is without evil? How do you know what all of it is?
Yeah,
So I know that there's somebody out there that just,
yeah. Just
they don't
completely
they don't they don't have the empathy, they don't have the compassion, they don't have any of it. They're just somebody who's fueled by hatred.
yeah,
Um, just as much as there's people out there who are fueled by love and compassion and empathy and mercy,
right.
there's the opposite of it.
Yeah.
But it's something to listen to that person and
Hmm.
understand
Hmm.
what their thought process is and where they're coming from. And
Yeah.
that's interesting to really think about and put that out in the air. I mean, we're going to have just a quick pub, a little bit thing that we're doing Monday. We're having our 4R roundtable again, where
Oh, that
um,
was
we're,
good. Yeah.
we're going to bring these conversations up again. And,
Yep.
that's, again, it's always good to get those conversations out in the open and get it out there and start having those talks so that you can at least form some kind of understanding of what it is to be
I, I
from the other side.
I do think that's important, man.
Yeah.
It, yeah, and that's true. We fear what we don't understand. So bringing the information out, being able to talk about it. I was talking to Teresa Quinlan, who's she's an EQ expert, and she goes so far into emotional intelligence. And I asked her specifically, what do you do in those situations where you have somebody who's essentially hating you? What do you do? How do you entertain the theory of making a space for them? And it was such an interesting thing. She says it starts with self-mastery. It starts with you knowing yourself enough
Mm.
to be able to say, what I want to do is I'm gonna make a space in myself to absorb whatever kind of badness they're gonna throw out. Excuse me. And she's like, you have to understand that that's them, that's their stuff, and leave it with them. So no matter what they spit out, what they blurt out, what kind of ignorance, foolishness it is, that's not you, that's them. And once you make a space for them and you absorb that, now you start to have a way to intercept that and respond back. And because of the fact you're understanding what's coming, you're making a space for it, you don't have to retaliate. Now you can actually respond. And she was actually making a point that in most marriages, this is what doesn't happen. This is why husband and wives fight and bicker, because of the fact that no one's making a space for the other person to make a mistake.
Yeah.
That all makes such a big difference. So, in my personal life, in my professional life, I'm really really trying to do that, man. I feel like those are the ways to really start to affect major change. In
Yeah.
fact, all of my posting on LinkedIn, man, I just want to say yesterday, I put out this whole post, man. Like, hey, if you get this feeling when you read one of my posts, that's called love. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
That's love. That's me loving you, not because we're the same race or not because we have the same sexual orientation or identify as the same gender. That's me loving you just because you're a human being, I'm a human being, and that by itself is a basis, enough basis for me to show you love. And when you
Yes.
do that, that's that feeling you're getting, and that's a thing that we can spread. That's a thing that we can make the groundwork, the foundation.
Yeah.
And to me, man, like that's where all the beauty comes from. It's like we don't have to have the same upbringing, we don't have to have the same status, social status. When it's a case that we're both operating off of the fact that we have a mutual desire to live because we're both humans, that should be the place we start.
Yeah, and that's again, and so one of my really good friends, I love Ross. She always brings good questions. She says, "What kind of consulting does your guest do?"
Life coaching, life
Like,
consulting, and transitional. I don't know if we're technically calling it transitional coaching, but when people are trying to move from job to job, when people are moving from career to career choice,
yeah.
starting a business, so it's all managed by transitional coaching.
So there's a shout out again to Mr. Matt Crump. Man, if you haven't connected with him and watched one of his lives, man, that guy is. I love watching some of his stuff. Sometimes I don't always get to hop on, but when I do, it is always good. And I just met Dimitri the other day. So, but he, man, he's a was blown away by what he was talking about,
Hmm.
and some of his thought processes and some of the things that he was sharing. Very interesting gentleman. So I love the fact that these guys are following along.
Hey
So
guys, be sure to hit me up on LinkedIn. Send me a connection request. I'm down to connect, man. I love having these conversations, even if it turns out that we don't agree. I love having these conversations. This is
right, and that's what it's about, right? It's to get to
that's how.
open those channels. That's what I just tell everybody.
Exactly.
Just
Yep.
open a channel of communication and
Yep.
see what happens from it. What if anything, you can at least take a learning lesson away from what it is. So if it is understanding what real hate is or whatever, okay, take that away from the conversation. Um, there's you can always learn something in somebody else's words. That's why I say nobody's story is boring to me or uninteresting or anything that anybody talks to.
Yep.
I tell everybody you have a nugget that you drop in every single time that we have a conversation, and that's why I love doing these. It's the fact that you get to do that. So, um, David, yes, that is a. Oh, David, you're always funny, my friend. So, but again, and again, if you catch that, folks, it's so he's talking about love is stronger than hate, and of course, David had to throw a line, and that's a thin line between. David, you're a jokester, but I love you, my
Very thin
friend.
line between.
That's David, though. So if you get to know David, connect David with Kelly if you haven't connected with him before. Send
Yeah.
him an invitation on LinkedIn, and thank you, Roz, again for hopping on and drop always being active. Sarah as well, Mike Padurano, Sherry Lawley. Oh,
Yeah.
let me tell you, this lady right here.
Yeah.
Okay, she is a really special, influential person in my life, and if you can see right behind me, she was the one that actually created that for me.
Oh, that's who you were talking about. Okay. Okay.
Yes, very early on, and it really put a lot of warmth in my heart that somebody believed
Yeah.
in me enough to say, you know what, I just want to make them for you because I think you're adding so much value. So yeah, so Mr.
She and I connected actually earlier today. She is great. Yeah.
she is a wonderful person. So, and again, Matt, thank you so much, buddy. Me and you need to connect, Mr. Crump. We need to have a conversation. So I'm going to be reaching out to him as well. So, Kelly, before we get out of here,
Yes.
this is the question I ask all the guests that come on. This is the $1,000,000 question at the end of the show that I ask all guests. So here it goes. When the book is said and done on Mr. Kelly Blackmon, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind, and what do you want to be remembered for?
That's beautiful, man. So at the end of this, what I'm really hoping is that anybody who I have this sort of mantra. This is my hashtag: lead with love. And
Oh,
it's not about being a leader so much as leading every interaction with love. So what I'm hoping is that I counted about 14 different tenets to this idea of love. And if you guys follow me, we'll talk about this much more. Uh, Love has some very specific things to it. And I think that in our interaction with our other human beings, our fellow brothers and sisters, that's what I want to be known for. That at every chance he could, Kelly left a legacy of love. Kelly led with love. He started off with love. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you brought to the table. He brought love. And I got to tell you, man, if that's what I do, I feel like that is a blessed life. That is a great life.
man, what a wonderful answer. I love that. Because I'm a big proponent of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether or not you learn what the real capacity of love is,
Yeah.
and even being vulnerable enough to let your heart be broken,
Yep.
that's the most wonderful thing about love.
Yes, sir.
It can do so much for you. It lets you feel alive. It can make you do, but
Makes you
that,
powerful, man.
yeah, it does.
And your vulnerability, it makes you powerful.
It makes you feel on a whole nother level.
Yep.
That's why when and just to go back to this again, what Dr. Bruce Lipton was saying in this video, and I'll put the link in there for people if they want to watch it, is the fact that he talks about living inside of your conscience. So it's 5% of your mind, the other 95% is your subconscious. But living in this 5%, he equates it to being in love, and that's simply because you see everything that's in front of you. You see your mate. You see the wonderful things. You notice everything can actually become so much. You could be living the same life, but you fall in love with somebody. All of a sudden, that life becomes rich. It becomes, frying fries at McDonald's is a great job. All of a sudden, right?
Man,
It
that's real.
it can take you from being, I was just a fry cook, and all of a sudden I'm a fry cook in love, and you see it and you go, life is different. You smell it changes the aspect of how everything it is. So that's why I saw that, and thank you, Annie Leap, for showing me that video, and I'm gonna drop it in the comments so people can watch it again, just because it was such a cool thing to learn about, and like what we're talking about here, that's what love is. That's how powerful it is, and being that open and being that honest and being vulnerable and being all those things. It's wonderful that was your answer, and I think that's a wonderful way to look at
I'm trying to
how you want to live it, how you want to end it. And that's the best way. So, Kelly, as always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening for coming on the show. Everybody else who followed along, I appreciate you guys every single night. You guys are the lifeblood of what I do, and it means so much to me that you come along and follow and have these conversations. And it just means so much to me. So thank you, everybody who follows again. And just a quick shout out to what we're doing Monday. We do have our 4-hour roundtable Monday evening again. Wonderful conversation. We will be talking about systemic racism, but I think we'll be going a little bit more depth this time, and that's wonderful to get these conversations out there and just getting the channels open and talking with folks. And that's the whole purpose behind what me and Mr. My buddy there, Mr. Padurano, love doing. So Mr. Mike, he's a pretty awesome guy. So
Mike's an amazing guy. So
so thank you, Shelly, again. Food analogy said, made from scratch. Set the table with a bowl full of love. Yes, it is.
That's right.
And I'll fill my soul up on it every single time if you allow me to. So thank you so much, Sherry. And then thank you, David, for the wonderful joke. Again, it was a good one, and it makes me walk away from it very well. So Kelly, sit tight. I'll just have a few words with you. Everybody else, thank you so much for following along. You have a safe and happy weekend. Stay safe, stay blessed. I know we're still in a pandemic and still things are going crazy, so just protect yourself if you have to go out in the public. And remember, peace, love, and harmony. We'll get through this together. You guys have a great night. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.